history fans, welcome back to another video. This is Ice Tea and History with Kyle Donnelly, and this is our third episode of Extreme Royal History, the Regnant Edition, where we'll be talking about King Henry I. Please enjoy this next episode. Henry I was the youngest son of William the Conqueror and Matilda of Flanders. Henry's exact birthday is unknown, but most scholars say it was September of 1068. As the youngest son, Henry was not expected to inherit much. Usually wealthy younger sons would be raised to have a career in the church. Therefore, Henry learned to read to prepare him for a life in the clergy. Henry was able to read fluently, unlike his brothers and fathers, who were famously illiterate. Because of this, he became known as Henry Beauclerc, meaning Henry the Scholar, because he was well-educated and fluent in Latin, a rarity among medieval kings. You'll remember from the first two episodes that after William the Conqueror's death in 1087, Henry famously received silver instead of land from his father, while his brothers became Duke of Normandy and King of England. Henry used his silver to his advantage. He was ambitious and used it to gain power and buy soldiers. Before becoming king, he would get into many conflicts with his brothers for land and castles. By 1100, Henry was back in good standing with his brother King William II, so the king invited him on a hunting trip. On August 2nd, 1100, while hunting, the king was shot by an arrow to the heart by one of his men by the name of Walter Tyrrell. Seeing this, Henry immediately rode away to secure the throne, leaving his brother's body at the scene. Henry's oldest brother Robert Curthose, Duke of Normandy, was still alive and technically had a stronger hereditary claim than Henry to the English throne. Henry knew that if he did not act quickly, Curthose might become king. Henry could not let that happen. He rode directly to Winchester and demanded the keys to the treasury and had himself installed there before any rival, particularly his brother. Once the treasury was in his hands, Henry moved to London, where he had strong support from leading nobles in the church. Henry rushed to plan his coronation, and just 3 days later, on August 5th, 1100, Henry was crowned King of England at Westminster Abbey by Maurice, Bishop of London. Usually kings of England are crowned by the Archbishop of Canterbury, but Archbishop Anselm was still in exile at the time, and Henry wanted to be crowned right away. A rushed coronation infers that Henry was publicly asserting his legitimacy to the people of London, and the fact that he did not wait for the Archbishop of Canterbury suggests that he was anxious about his rivals asserting their rights to the throne. At his coronation, Henry promised to address baronial grievances, including limiting royal abuses of power. This Charter of Liberties helped win over the nobility by signaling a more just and lawful reign, contrasting with William Rufus's unpopular rule. Henry promised to support the church's reform movement and worked closely with bishops to strengthen his rule. He valued the administrative skills of churchmen, many of whom served as his advisors and clerks in government. Henry was a stark contrast to William Rufus, who famously never married or took mistresses, and whose sexuality is highly contested. There was no question Henry loved the company of women. Henry took many mistresses throughout his life, and he is known to have fathered over 20 illegitimate children. Before becoming king in 1100, Henry already had a son out of wedlock with a Welsh princess named Nestfurch Rhys. Their son Robert became the first Earl of Gloucester. He was born in 1090 and lived until 1147. Robert was Henry's most famous illegitimate son. We do not know much about the others besides their names, but quickly I will name the others we know of. The sons were Reginald de Dunstanville, Earl of Cornwall, Henry Fitzhenry, Richard of Lincoln, William de Tracy, and Gilbert. His daughters were Sibylla, who became Queen of Scotland, Matilda Fitzroy, the Countess of Perche, Elizabeth Fitzhenry, Maud Fitzroy, Duchess of Brittany, Matilda Fitzroy, who became the Abbess of Montevilliers, Juliane de Fontevraud Gundred, and Rose. We do not know their exact dates of birth, but we know their date of death, so we can infer their ages based on that. Henry fathered illegitimate offspring before and after becoming king based on the dates of death of his children. Later in 1100, on November 11th, Henry I secured a strong marriage alliance to Edith of Scotland, daughter of King Malcolm III of Scotland and St. Margaret, Queen of Scotland. Edith was also a descendant of the original Anglo-Saxon royal line. After marrying, Edith changed her name to Matilda and would hence be known as Matilda of Scotland, Queen of England. This union helped legitimize Henry's claim to the English throne by linking him to the Old English monarchy, which was important for securing the loyalty of his subjects. Henry needed to secure the succession of his dynasty, so he needed legitimate children. Thankfully for him, his marriage proved fruitful with a daughter first and a son soon after. Henry and Matilda's daughter was named Matilda, thus adding to our already confusing line of Matildas. The princess was born February 7, 1102, at Sutton Courtenay in Berkshire. Their son was named William the Etheling, which was a traditional title referring to the English heir to the throne. However, William would be the last prince of England to be known as the Etheling. William was born on August 5, 1103, at Winchester. Henry was eager to prove to the barons of England and Normandy that he would be able to protect their lands in both countries, asserting that they did not need Robert as Duke of Normandy, but should instead submit to Henry to consolidate the rule over both England and Normandy, as it was in the days of the Conqueror. Thus, Henry sought to take Normandy from his brother Robert by force. In 1106, Henry invaded Normandy and defeated Robert at the Battle of Tinchebray. He captured his brother and imprisoned him for life, consolidating control over both England and Normandy. This victory ensured Henry's dominance and marked the end of his brother's claims. One of Henry I's most lasting contributions to the English government was the creation of the Exchequer around the 1110s. The Exchequer was the kingdom's central financial office, designed to make the collection of royal revenue more efficient and accountable. The name comes from the checkered cloth. It was not just an office in the political sense of the word, it was literally a large table covered with a cloth patterned in squares, a bit like a chessboard. Royal officials sat around this table to count and audit the king's money. Coins were placed on the squares as counters, which made calculations of taxes and payments much easier in an age before written spreadsheets. The Exchequer developed into a highly organized system. Sheriffs and royal officials had to appear there to give accounts of the revenues they collected in the shires. These were carefully recorded in the pipe rolls, which survive as some of the earliest continuous government records in Europe. In 1114, at just 12 years old, Henry sent his daughter Matilda to marry the 28-year-old Holy Roman Emperor Henry V. At that time, she went to live in Germany. Their marriage was good for Henry I as it forged a strong alliance between England and the Holy Roman Empire at the time. She learned the culture and politics of the imperial court and became known as the Empress Matilda. Chroniclers note that she took part in courtly ceremonies and may have had some involvement in the emperor's political affairs, though her influence was limited by her youth and gender. Back in England, Henry would continue to rule strongly for the next 4 years, maintaining a firm grip on his lands in both England and Normandy. Sadly, on May 1, 1118, Henry I's wife and queen, Matilda of Scotland, died. Henry lost his closest companion and a steady hand at court. Matilda had been the bridge between the Norman rulers and the English people, and the mother of his only legitimate children, Matilda and William. Her passing left Henry in deep personal grief. Without her, he had to face the stark reality of securing his dynasty. Henry would remain a widower for 3 years before marrying again. He may have stayed unmarried if the White Ship tragedy had not occurred. In 1120, Henry's only legitimate son and heir, William the Etheling, boarded the White Ship to cross the English Channel from Normandy to England. The ship was overloaded, and the crew, reportedly intoxicated, set sail late at night. Shortly after departure, the White Ship struck a submerged rock and quickly sank, killing nearly everyone aboard. There was a whole generation of young English nobles aboard the White Ship, including many of William's half-siblings. The crew were so belligerent that some passengers left before disembarking. Most notably, William's cousin, future King Stephen I of England, left the ship while it was still at the dock. Stephen claimed he was sick with diarrhea, but some think he knew better than to leave with them that night. It is said that the crew wanted to beat the king's ship back to England, so they hastily set sail at high speed. In their drunkenness, they had forgotten that those waters were notoriously rocky, and they crashed into a large rock, sinking the ship and plunging all of the passengers in their fancy and heavy medieval garments into the cold waters of Normandy. All but 2 drowned. It is said that when the ship crashed into the freezing waters, a few of William's men put him on a small life raft. William would have made it, but hearing the screams of his half-sister, he turned around to help her and was pulled under by other frantic passengers. His body was never recovered. When the news finally got back to England, the nobles were too afraid to tell the king of the tragedy, fearing that he might kill them or punish them in his rage after hearing of his son's death. To prevent the king's rage, the nobles found a young boy around the age of 8 to bring the sad message to the king. The boy was old enough to know the weight of his task, and began to cry in the king's presence, and told the king of the White Ship's sinking. This tragedy devastated Henry. He threw a massive tantrum and is said to have never smiled again. William the Etheling's death left the succession uncertain. Without a male heir, Henry named his daughter, Empress Matilda, as his successor. Henry campaigned hard for his barons to accept her as their next leader. All of them agreed to Henry's face so as not to upset their king. In 1121, knowing that he must attempt to have another son, Henry chose to marry Adeliza of Louvain. She was a young and noble bride from the Low Countries. The marriage was politically clever, but it could not replace the bond he had lost with Matilda, nor would it produce the children his kingdom so desperately needed. During their 14-year marriage, Henry and Queen Adeliza were not able to conceive any children. Back on the continent, Henry's son-in-law, the emperor, died in 1125. Empress Matilda, still only in her early 20s, became a widow. Matilda would continue to use her title from her first marriage for the rest of her life. She would never forget her time as empress. In 1128, Henry I forged an alliance with the Count of Anjou by arranging the marriage of the Count's 15-year-old son, Geoffrey, and Henry's 26-year-old daughter, the Empress Matilda. Geoffrey Plantagenet, Count of Anjou, was heir to one of the most powerful lordships in France, making him a strong husband for Matilda. At first, Matilda was not excited to be the wife of a count, which would be a big downgrade from being the wife of an emperor in her eyes. She married him anyway because it was her duty, and they produced the line of kings that will be known as the Plantagenets. King Henry I unexpectedly died around the age of 67. He died December 1, 1135, at Saint-Denis-le-Fermont, in Normandy, reportedly from eating a large serving of lampreys, a type of fish he loved but which was considered toxic in large amounts, or if prepared incorrectly. His death created a succession crisis because Henry had named his daughter, Empress Matilda, as his heir. However, upon Henry's death, his nephew Stephen of Blois quickly seized the throne. Most of the nobles pulled their support for Matilda to support Stephen, as they preferred a man to sit on the throne. This plunged England into nearly 2 decades of instability, in a civil war known as the Anarchy. Henry's body was brought back across the Channel to England and buried at Reading Abbey, the great monastery he had founded in 1121. At the time, this was a magnificent royal burial place. Sadly, Reading Abbey was destroyed during the dissolution of the monasteries under Henry VIII in the 16th century. Henry I's tomb was lost in the ruins, and his exact resting place remains uncertain. Archaeologists believe his remains may still lie beneath what is now the town of Reading, but his grave is not accessible or known to the public.
Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe down below so that we can make more episodes of Extreme Royal History, the Regnant Edition.
In the coming videos, we are going to continue our series called Extreme Royal History, the Regnant Edition. This series will include a video on each of the kings and queens of England from 1066 to the present, who ruled England and later Great Britain and the United Kingdom as a sovereign in their own right, not by marriage. Someone who is king, queen, or prince by marriage is known as a consort. A consort shares their spouse's royal dignity and rank, but they do not share the regnant's authority. Their authority is completely determined by the regnant. We will also hear the word regent in the coming videos. A regent is someone who rules the country while the sovereign is away, indisposed, or too young to rule on their own. Some consorts throughout history have been tasked with the regency. Some consorts had very little sway over their husbands, and others dominated the court. If you are interested in learning more about Queen's Consort and later in history, Prince's Consort, then please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss when we come out with our second series called Extreme Royal History, the Consort Edition. Check out the links below to see my sources. I have also listed the channels below that have inspired me to start my own YouTube channel. I am not an expert and am always excited to learn more about history. With this channel, I aim to bring more history content to people like me who love to binge watch history videos on YouTube. If you are like me and are enchanted by grand stories of the kings and queens of old, then you will love this channel. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos coming soon.